All right, this is video 2 for lecture 1, and we will cover another 10, 15 minutes with it. Okay, so we're on to statistics and the behavioral sciences. So behavioral sciences just refer to the study of human and animal behavior. Psychology, cognitive science, right? Anthropology can be included, and sociology, right? Behavioral sciences are based on empirical research. This means knowledge obtained through observation of events, not through just sitting around and thinking, right? That was Descartes. The scores obtained in research are the data. Psychology, and I'm going to emphasize psychology because first, you're taking this course in the psych department, even though many of you might not be psych majors. And second, I'm a psychologist, right? Psychology is the scientific study of human behavior and thought process and so forth. Now, the scientific method, now we're going to come back to this, but simplified, is you make observations. So you look around you and questions occur, right? You think up questions occur to you based on prior research, based on things you see, children in the playground, so forth. This will hopefully inspire you to come up with a problem, a theory, a hypothesis, right? State the problem, formulate a question. Why do children bully each other? Why does it seem that little boys bully physically more than little girls more relationally, right? Relational aggression is more typical in little girls, and physical aggression more typical in little boys. You might say why. So you're stating a problem and a question to be answered, right? You formulate a testable theory and you make hypotheses. Then you test this theory. You collect the data and perform statistical analyses, test those hypotheses, right? This is what we're really going to be doing in this course. Then you reach a conclusion. Did the data lend support to the theory? And then you repeat. If the data lent support, then you repeat just to replicate and maybe replicate and extend. If not, maybe you approach the question from a different angle, right? So all psychologists use statistics. Counseling, and clinical psychologists, they'll use them to compare efficacy of different therapies. Social psychologists, we might study how personality traits relate to behavior and to each other. We might study all sorts of intergroup relationships, and so forth. Cognitive psychologists study how the mind works, so how specific stimuli affect recall and reaction speed, for example. Industrial and organizational psychologists are really focused on the workplace and trying to figure out what makes workers happier and more productive and so forth. So how do environmental factors influence productivity? What can affect ethical behavior in the workplace? Stuff like that. Behavioral neuroscience, maybe they're going to look at gene-environment interactions and how they affect behavior. A developmental psychologist might study which psychometric instruments, which means scales to measure things, can most effectively assess moral development, and so forth. Everybody uses them, right? So let's walk through an example to see why we might want to actually use statistics, right? So descriptive statistics can give us an idea about the basic characteristics of a population, okay, summarizing a population, which means everybody, complete collection of measurements, individuals, or objects, such as all the people enrolled in InfoPsych stats in the United States, right? Or a sample, which is just a subset of a population, such as the students in this stats class, right? These, we refer to people as participants, mainly nowadays, but also subjects. So for example, let's look at these 100 cases, which means 100 participants or people, 100 GRE scores. We can look at it like this, and it's pretty much just a lot of numbers, right? But we can use a graphical description to have a better idea of what's going on, right? We can see it goes from 200 to above 800 and so forth. We can also use numerical descriptions, which should give us the average or mean, standard deviation, and minimum, maximum, range, so forth. And we're going to learn all about that. All right. Let's do population and samples next. So refreshing the scientific method, it means make observations, formulate testable theory, test your theory. That's what we're going to focus on here. Reach a conclusion and repeat, right? So let's think about an example. What effects might watching TV have on people? Well, I don't know if you guys saw these shows, but on the left, we have Dr. Melfi from The Sopranos, and she portrayed an ethical therapist. On the right, we have Dr. Weston from In Treatment. Well, he has sex with a patient, which is really a big no-no, not ethical, right? So do you guys think that what kind of TV show, if you watch shows with an ethical patient, you might be more willing to seek therapy in real life? Maybe you wonder. Well, that's the beginning of the research process. You come up with a question. Can viewing examples of bad versus good therapists affect people's willingness to seek out therapy in real life? Might make a hypothesis. You might say people who view TV with ethical therapists are more likely to be willing to get therapy in real life than people who view TV with unethical therapists. The logic of this, which is good for understanding, is if viewing good versus bad TV therapists increases willingness to seek therapy, then participants assigned to watch a TV series with an ethical therapist will express greater willingness to seek therapy than participants who view a TV series with an unethical therapist. And you bring a whole bunch of people into a lab and you randomly assign people to view either ethical therapists or unethical therapists. And we'll talk more about that later, right? And then you would want to test those predictions. You'd have them, watch one or the other, and maybe a control group TV series. And then you'll ask them, how willing would you be to seek out therapy if you felt you needed to, right? And then you compare the means of the people who watch TV shows with ethical therapists versus those who watch TV shows with unethical therapists, right? Use statistics to test them, right? And then at that point, you want to draw inferences. Say we have a sample of 100 people, and we show that those who were randomly assigned to watch a TV show with an ethical therapist exhibited more willingness to seek out therapy in real life. Well, then we have to say, does this actually apply to the population of everybody who watches TV? And that is the basis of statistics, figuring out whether we can apply what we find in a sample to the population, which is everybody. So population is just a complete set of everybody, of individuals or objects having some common observable characteristics. So in our example, it would be everybody who watches television, right? Could also be US college students, all of them, Cal State students, community college students, everybody living in the US, BC college students, right? BC psychology students. A sample is just a subset of the population, a group consisting of some, but not all members, again, called participants. It's not everybody. Like we could have 100 BC students rather than all Bakersfield College students. Why this is important? Statistics almost always deals with samples because we can't measure the populations. We are almost never capable of getting everybody to complete a survey or come into the lab or so forth. And we want to be able to draw conclusions about the population based on a subset, based on the sample, okay? So a few more things. A statistic is a number that results from a descriptive procedure describing a sample. We use Latin letters to signify statistics. M means sample mean, ST means sample standard deviation, and they are italicized. A parameter is a number that describes a characteristic of the population. We use Greek letters to signify parameters. So this is mu, which means a population mean, and lowercase sigma, population standard deviation, right? We make hypotheses about populations and we use Greek letters. Okay. So for example, we have a population of 7,000 students, and we might take a sample of 100 students, right? A subset. So for example, around the time of election year, like right about now, I'm speaking in October 2022, you hear about polls that predict outcomes of elections. So what if you wanted to, for example, back in 2020, describe California voters' intentions to vote for Trump or Biden or whoever, right? The population would be everybody in California because you want to predict the California vote. You want to be able to ask everybody in 17 million registered voters, right? Most election polls rely on small samples, such as 600 to 3,000 prospective voters, and these are pretty accurate, but we know that polls are not always right? And we'll get into that more. One more few examples. Could be any subset. 1,500 voters in California would represent the population of California voters. 500 in Kern County would represent Kern County. 500 voters from Bakersfield College would represent the population of the Bakersfield College voters. All right, so let's stop here and we'll continue in the next video.